Welcome back to another amazing episode of Sports Talk with Dad. My name is Kyle, and as always, I cannot call it Sports Talk with Dad without the man sitting next to me, a man who had a front row seat to the first Roman wrestling event of all time, my dad, Tim.
Yeah, I think that was Crusher facing off against Ric Flair, maybe.
I've been really into wrestling documentaries all of a sudden, and I don't know why.
I love old-time wrestling. Today's wrestling, I don't relate to at all.
I was never allowed to watch it, so...
Well, you were when I was there, but if your mom was there, not a chance.
Not going to happen.
But I grew up with your grandpa. We used to watch out of Milwaukee or Rockford or whatever, old-time wrestling with the Crusher and Baron Von Raschke and Greg Gagne, Jim Brunzell, the High Flyers.
That was only up here, too. I did not realize there were a bunch of territories all over the country, and wrestlers would bounce from territory to territory to territory.
Hulk Hogan started in the Vern Gagne territory in the AWA.
He did not.
Oh, he was in Florida.
He was in Florida and then New York, and then did the...
I thought he went to Vern Gagne's...
I'm telling you, I've been obsessed with this.
I believe you.
He went to New York and wrestled for Vince Sr., Vince McMahon Sr., and then did the Rocky movie, and Vince Sr. told him to not come back. And then he went to Minnesota for 3 years.
Okay.
And then Gagne was going to start to expand out to New York.
Going to try.
And Vince Jr. took control and said, hey, I'm going to take this whole thing over. What do you think? He's like, cool, I'm in.
Made a lot of money.
Yes, he did. No, I watched the Roddy Piper documentary, which was really sad. I watched the Macho Man Randy Savage documentary. He was a minor league baseball player.
Yes, he was.
For the Cardinals, and then he hurt his arm. He was a catcher, hurt his arm, and then learned how to throw left-handed.
Which shows you what a freak of an athlete he was.
Yeah, and was a first baseman, and the White Sox cut him, and his dad owned a wrestling territory.
Isn't his real name Popoff or something like that?
Yeah, it's Randy Pofus. His mother... His dad was Italian, I think, and his mom was actually in Germany. She was a Jewish woman in Germany during World War II.
Wow.
And had to obviously flee her country.
I don't know if the movies come out about the Von Erichs yet or not. Zac Efron is playing one of them.
I don't think it's come out yet, but they're the Texas ones, right?
They're the Texas ones, and probably one of the most tragic stories in wrestling. I mean, there was, I think, 5 brothers, and there's only one left now.
That's crazy. I could talk about this all day. I've been listening to Ric Flair. I've been listening to Hogan. I've been listening to family members of people.
If you haven't heard the story about Mad Dog Vachon on a plane flight with Ric Flair and everybody else, you've got to look that up. It is funny, crazy, insane, everything you want in professional wrestling. If you heard the story, you'd go, "There's no way." But I've heard it.
I believe all of them now.
All of it is true.
I mean, a lot of them have been embellished, right? There's stories, and same as everybody else, same as you, same as me, the stories grow and grow and grow.
Well, Greg Gagne and Ric Flair were on that flight, I think. And they both tell the same story.
Yeah.
So it's just Mad Dog Vachon was crazy.
They all were. I listened to Ric Flair. He was talking about how they would get in. If it was a 7-day work week, there would be at least 2 bar fights in that week.
I believe that.
I mean,
Terry Funk just died. Actually, last week.
I don't know who that is.
Terry, you will when I tell you. Terry Funk was from the South.
Okay.
So he was in the WCW, NWA territory.
Okay. Well, WCW wasn't.
That was later on. That was in
that was
the
Ted
80s.
Turner.
Yeah. Part of it, NWA. But Terry Funk was in the movie Roadhouse.
I've never seen the whole movie. At this point, I've seen the whole thing, but I've never actually
He's one of the
sat and.
He's one of the bad guys, bouncers.
Okay.
He was in the big fight outside when they're trying to get the booze in and everything. He was also, I think, in the crazy movies with Terry Bradshaw and Burt Reynolds, and I think one of them was called Hooper, where he played a stuntman.
I've heard of Hooper.
Hooper was a funny movie. Funny movie. We digress.
Isn't that where Burt Reynolds jumped the bridge?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I know the movie you're talking about.
It's a great movie. No, it's not a great movie. It's a fun movie.
There is a difference. I mean, there's a lot of movies I like that aren't good movies.
It is definitely a guilty pleasure.
Yeah.
It was like Smokey and the Bandit, and Hooper, and all those Burt Reynolds.
It's like
movies.
RV with Robin Williams.
Yeah,
it's not a good movie.
No,
I like that movie a lot though. Definitely a guilty pleasure movie.
You would like Hooper. The one Burt Reynolds movie I can never watch is Deliverance.
The horror movie?
It's disturbing. Yeah,
there's a few of those. I definitely saw one movie I'm not going to name by name, but I was told not to watch it.
And you did?
And watched it. It's about let's just say Centipede is in the name, and don't go see that. Do yourself a favor. It's not worth it. It is nightmare fuel for the rest of your life.
Can we talk about sports?
Let's talk about sports. That took a different turn. Real sports.
Not sports entertainment. That's what they call wrestling.
Listen, here's one thing I will say. Is it predetermined? Yes, it's predetermined.
Unless Andre the Giant is.
Unless somebody decides they're not going to take a fall. It's predetermined, and they're doing the best they can not to hurt each other. It's definitely a dance. I look at it like a ballet, right? People still get hurt doing that.
They're athletes.
They're athletes. This is an athletic event. I mean, to be able to Hulk Hogan hit The Rock in the head with a hammer, a real hammer, and didn't hurt him. Like, that's talent.
Mm-hmm.
And these guys are real athletes doing a lot of things. They get hurt for real.
Jumping off the top rope, doing a flip and landing on somebody.
The only thing is it's predetermined. And it's interesting hearing them too, because there are people like Hulk Hogan didn't choreograph any of it. He's like, let's get in the crowd and let's get into the ring and see what the crowd wants, and we'll go from there. Where you had somebody like Randy Savage who step by step by step had everything planned out. It was interesting to watch. I highly recommend it. But anyway, there is something happening in baseball right now, and you sent me a video. We were out last week. You had to go to Florida last minute, but obviously it's you. So still at 2 a.m, I'm getting text messages of random YouTube videos. Never teach your father what shorts on YouTube are. It's a dangerous game. 1, he'll never sleep. 2, he's gonna send you all these videos 24/7. But you sent me one that I had seen before, and I wanted to talk about it more in detail.
We're talking about the Ozuna?
Yeah.
Short? Yeah. So Ozuna has this crazy long swing, and Will Smith, catcher for the Cubs, Dodgers, is behind him, and Ozuna hit him in the head, not once, not twice, like 3 times at one point, gave him a concussion.
He's doing it to a bunch of catchers.
Sure. Well, he does it to the whole league.
He has a big swing. He stands in the back of the box, and those of you who haven't seen, check it out here. He has this massive swing that goes all the way back. And at some point,
baseball needs to step in.
They do,
because
this is getting to be ridiculous.
It's
getting to be intentional at this point.
He can say all he wants, and I'm not doing it on purpose. Well, you've hit too many people in the head for it not to be somewhat intentional.
You're refusing to change your swing.
Correct.
And all that big of a back swing, like you don't need it.
No, the ball's long gone.
Right. At that point, you're just letting the bat flail behind you. I think you can change your swing, and I really think it's coming to the point where suspensions need to start to happen.
I think so. I mean, I think the example I used, it was like the Deacon Jones head slap.
Yeah.
They outlawed it because it was doing damage to the other player.
Right.
Catcher is completely defensive.
Yeah.
Defenseless, rather.
Defenseless, yeah.
In that situation, because he's watching the ball, he's trying to protect the umpire, he's getting ready, and the bat comes behind him. He can't even see it.
No, it's behind him. He can't even see it, like you just said.
And the helmet is not going to protect him.
No.
So
not in that situation. And Ozuna's a big guy, and he is swinging that back carefree.
Yes.
Like there is no control on that bat at all at the end. And you're a professional athlete. Like there's no reason for you not to have control of that bat. I mean, at this point, it's going to get to a point where he's really going to hurt somebody, and the question is going to become, is this assault with a deadly weapon?
Well, he's already made Will Smith miss several days with a concussion.
Right. That should have been where baseball, not should have, that is where baseball needed to step in and put a stop to this.
They should have fined him. They should have suspended him, because you can't allow that kind of thing to continue. No. You wouldn't let somebody go out to a pitcher with a bat and hit him in the head, or somebody in the batter's box and somebody else just walk up and club him in the head.
Right.
You can't let the catchers be injured like that.
I don't know where baseball is on this. I don't know why they're not. I mean, baseball is famous for letting things slide until they have to do something about it. Spiked cleats obviously was a big one until they put a stop to that. Gambling in sports. Yeah, same thing. Yeah, because I mean, Ty Cobb was famous for having really sharp cleats, which I'm sure helped him in the dirt, but it also helped him spike second baseman and make him bleed.
Your ankle was in danger.
And it took them forever to stop that from happening. Gambling in sports, it literally took a World Series being thrown before they did anything about that. You talk about steroids. I mean, they let that go until
there's no reason
mishandled completely.
This guy's doing it on purpose at this point. They've got to step in and they've got to stop him from doing that before some real damage is done.
Well, I'm watching him look back and just look at the catcher, clearly saying sorry. It's like, no, you're not. You're really not. Like, don't even look back and say anything.
Right.
Like, you're being an asshole right now. You can control your swing. You're refusing to change it. If I'm somebody and I hit somebody in the back of the head, especially if they get a concussion because my bat flew too far, I'd focus on adjusting, not bringing that bat all the way back. Like, that's what normal human beings do.
And I'm surprised the umpire didn't step in and when he hit him for the second time and gone, okay,
he's hit
do it again,
several catchers. Yeah. Like, at this point, you need to toss him out of the game. You need to suspend him until he fixes this. This isn't safe for a player. A player continues to get hurt, and here's the thing: is more players as they start to come up and watch this guy are going to start doing that. What do kids do best? They imitate their favorite players.
Like with the adjusting the gloves and everything else,
right.
And they all copy Toby Harrah because he fixed his gloves, and it slowed down the game. It took a pitch clock to speed the game back up.
Right.
This is an easy fix.
And it's not the catcher's job to back up. Like, that's Ozuna's thing. The catcher needs to back up. No, he doesn't. You're standing so far back in the box.
He's barely on the line.
Right. You're almost out of the box because you're so far back at this point. You need to fix your swing. Because at some point, the umpire needs to be able to see the plate, too.
Right.
And he stands behind the catcher, so the farther the catcher is back, the worse angle the umpire has at the plate.
And it's amazing.
And they're already terrible at calling balls and strikes.
Yes, they are. No, they're not. But
I got you to admit it. We all heard it. It's too late.
I was into my own thought. The problem is, the further back he goes, Ozuna still seems to find a way to hit him in the head.
Every time.
Every time. No matter how far back the catcher goes.
Well, the more far back the catcher goes, if you watch Ozuna, the farther back the catcher goes, the farther back Ozuna goes, it seems like. And it's like, dude, fix your swing.
Either
this isn't acceptable.
Keep your other hand on it.
Right.
Or just shorten your swing a little bit.
Just keep your hand on the bat. And don't go back as far. It's not that hard to do. Like, this should have, the problem is people didn't, he's obviously been doing this even in the minors, has to have been. If this is something just picked up in the majors, then really this guy's got a problem. But for you, he's obviously been doing this for a very long time and nobody's corrected this. And that's just a failure on everybody's part.
We talked about the bad. Now let's talk about the sad. Did you see this happened when I was in Florida? I was watching the game. Did you see Ohtani go down?
Yeah, that's obviously been huge news.
Second ligament surgery is coming up.
Yeah, I mean, most people have Tommy John before they're even, not most people, but a bunch of people have Tommy John before they even get into the league. It's not that big of a deal for a surgery anymore. So it doesn't surprise me that he had it when he was in Japan. This could be it, though.
But this is why I was telling you it takes 10 years in baseball before you can evaluate a guy for the Hall of Fame. And here's why. Ohtani, as a pitcher and a hitter, perhaps the greatest we've ever seen. This last 3 years, we may never see again. No, I may not. We'll never see it again in our lifetime.
No.
But for him to be in the Hall of Fame, now he's got to do it just as a hitter. And he's going to have to put up some insane numbers as a hitter unless he can figure it out as pitching and unless they can fix it, because his value is as a pitcher and a hitter, and that's where he was going to get that $600-700 million contract.
All right, one, he's already a Hall of Famer.
He's not.
He is.
He's not.
He had back-to-back-to-back amazing seasons.
That's 3 seasons. You got to do more than that. You have to have more than 3 years.
And he will. Do you think he's done pitching then? You think this is it for him?
I hope not. I hope he can have whatever surgery he needs. Will he be as overpowering as he's been the last 3 years? I think he's going to have to come up with another pitch.
Which he already has 5.
He's not going to just be able to overpower people, though.
But he doesn't. I mean, that's the thing I think with Ohtani, where he's not done. It's 15 to 18 month recovery on this.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to be hitting throughout. I mean, obviously, he's going to stay a hitter while he recovers from this.
Probably just the DH, you think? Or they're going to.
Yeah, he's been a DH. He's been a DH.
I can't see him letting him go in the outfield.
No, and he doesn't play the field anyways. He's been a DH since he came into the league. But he's not just, that's what I was trying to say. He's not just a power pitcher like you see a lot today. He's very much a guy that works the count. He's very much a guy, he's not he can blow 100-mile-per-hour smoke by you, but I mean, he's going to set that up with a changeup. He's going to set that up with a curveball and a slider, and then you don't know what's coming, and then all of a sudden a 97-mile-per-hour fastball comes to you.
If I were him,
he's an actual pitcher.
If I were him, I would get a hold of Greg Maddux real quick.
Yeah.
Because, yes, he has all those other pitches, but they set up his fastball, which is his out pitch.
They do. And he's got the skills to do that. He's not going to come back and throw the heat he's been throwing. You're absolutely right. But Greg Maddux got hurt and never came back throwing. I don't even think he threw another fastball in the 90s ever again.
Well, and that's why I said you should get a hold of him and work closely with him. I do think this becomes more likely that he stays with the Angels, maybe the Dodgers.
Well, that's the other question. Okay, so we have a big contract now coming up, right? Everybody's thinking it's going to be that $700 million.
Not anymore.
You don't think he's going to get $70 million a year still?
I think he's going to sign. No,
it's not going to be a long-term contract.
He's going to sign a 2-year, $100 million contract
with the Angels.
Possibly. If I'm him, I sign with the Angels, where I know everybody. I have a comfort level. The doctors all know me. The staff is there. He's got good trainers.
But if there's a guy that has lived outside comfort, it is Ohtani. I mean, he comes into the United States from Japan not speaking any English and still learns how to perform. I mean, no matter where he goes, I mean, it's going to be uncomfortable.
I said the Angels, maybe the Dodgers, but whatever it'll be a 2-year contract with incentives and maybe an extender on it if he comes back and he starts pitching again.
Could be, because what's the time difference between Japan and California?
No idea.
Do you know?
7 hours?
Because that's why Ichiro went to Seattle.
Correct, because Japan could get all his games, and I'm sure that's why Ohtani's playing for the Angels.
Japan to English. I don't want that.
Okay, this is when we have good radio or good broadcasting, when you're looking up things on your phone.
You can keep talking. That's what you're supposed to do.
Yes, I know.
16 hours. Oh, well, that doesn't make much. That's a lot.
16 hours to Japan?
16-hour time difference, yeah.
That seems a lot.
I thought so.
You got the international dateline. But
you do.
Whatever. The bottom line is people in Japan can watch the games. I just think Ohtani is still an outstanding player. He's going to just be hitting for a couple years. I mean, like you said, it's 15 months. So if he has the surgery in October, maybe he'll be ready for 2026 season. I don't think we're going to see him in 24 or 25.
Unless you have a team that makes the playoffs and all of a sudden he's put in a relief position later on in the World Series.
He's going to need a lot of work.
I just don't.
I hope it's a minor surgery.
I mean, it's Tommy John surgery. It's not a minor surgery by any means. It's a pretty big surgery.
I heard that it may be a different type of UCL surgery instead of the full Tommy John, but I don't know.
It's a tear, so it's the Brock Purdy surgery. It's the same surgery he had. So if I'm him, I'm not staying with the Angels. I'm not. Because here's the thing is you need to build that roster. You have to. Their farm system is trash. They have no trade bait unless you trade Mike Trout, and then what's the point of that?
Well, then where are you going? And don't say the Cubs.
Okay. I really think Chicago is a good spot for him. It's a young team with a great farm system that has the money to pay him. You sign a 3-year contract in Chicago. Look what it did for Cody Bellinger this year.
I think it's more likely he goes either the Dodgers or he stays with the Angels until his arm is healed.
He's going to Chicago. I think odds right now are sitting in the fact that he is going to stay with the Angels. I think you're absolutely right on that. The Yankees, they're a bad team right now.
He's not going to
They're
the Yankees.
a bad team right now, and I don't see them recovering. I think Aaron Boone's going to get fired, and I think it's going to be a full rebuild at this point. I mean, I think it's more likely that Rizzo goes back to the Cubs than it is that Ohtani goes to the Yankees. Honestly, and Aaron Judge gets traded.
I think he stays on the West Coast, and that means two teams for me, either the Dodgers or the Angels.
It could. The Giants had a slip back this year, but never count the Giants out. The Diamondbacks are a young team getting hot, but I don't think he wants to play in Arizona.
I think he wants to stay around his doctors and the organization and the trainers that he knows and is very familiar with.
Well, it's a walk in L.A. He's 2 blocks away from the stadium is where apparently he lives. It's an easy walk to the stadium every day. You don't have to worry about much. But I just want to see him in Chicago. I really do.
I want to see him pitch again because we have never seen this in our lifetime.
It's the question if he wants to win, I think, more than anything, because he's not going to win with the Angels. When the Angels have been, you were around when they were the California Angels, right?
Yes, I was.
I mean, how many winners have the Angels built?
I think they've gotten one World Series. They were in the American League Championship against the Brewers. They were down. They were actually up 3-0. The Brewers came back and beat them in that series. Or they were up. I don't know if it was a 5 or 7 game, but they came back. Brewers came back and won. So they've had good teams. I mean, Gene Autry.
We're talking 80s.
Yeah, Gene Autry owned the team at that time. You know, Gene Autry, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, singing cowboy.
Got it.
He owned the team, and he was baseball crazy, and he built a winner, but they've never really. They should be better than they are.
I don't think I've ever seen. I mean, you had that run in the '90s with Vlad Guerrero was on that team, and they were a decent team at that point. But in my lifetime, they've never really built a team. I mean, the Mariners built a better team, and they really only had that one run, and then were immediately.
They should be so much better. They've got the best player in baseball, Mike Trout. They've got Ohtani. They should be a lot better than they are. It's
a bad owner, bad GM. You're not focusing on the farm system, because for you to have Ohtani and Trout like that and then to not have a farm system with no other talent around them. I mean, I don't know. You're not playing Moneyball.
No.
You're not playing actual baseball. You just have these stars and allow them to draw when you're the second team.
They're a second team in a 2-team city.
I mean, you really have to build a winner there to draw, and they're just not capable, apparently, of doing that. There's no angel curse. You have no excuse.
No, there's nothing like that.
And so if you're Ohtani sitting there, even with this, I agree. I think it's going to be like a 2-3 year deal at this point. It makes sense, and then get your big payday afterwards. Mm-hmm. If you want to win, and I don't want to go to the Dodgers either. I really don't. What are you going to do? You're just going to be in a crowded room of a bunch of other superstars. Sure. It's hard to shine in that situation.
Ohtani's going to shine wherever he is.
Probably.
But it's going to be imperative upon him to come back and pitch.
But you're not the star of that team. Where if you go to a Chicago, you can be the star of that team. And I know it sounds funny coming from me because I'm obviously a diehard Cubs fan, right?
And I would such a homer now.
I don't believe in buying a jersey at this point with another man's name on it, right? I'm an adult, but I would change my mind for an Ohtani jersey. I would have that. I would find a way to get it signed, and it will be framed in this studio for all time. But it makes sense. You know, all of a sudden they built a team. Now, this is the Cubs, right? I've seen this happen 1,000 times. Well, we actually have a team here, and then the next year we don't. I get that, but I'm just saying, Ohtani being there. I will say, honestly, though, I think the Yankees are out of this.
I do, too.
They don't have a team.
The only other team besides the Angels or Dodgers, honestly, 2 other teams, is the Cubs or the Rangers.
I just wanted you to hear you say Cubs. Rangers do make sense. They actually have a young team.
They do.
They have a good young team.
But
they have the money.
He's not going anywhere. He's going to stay in Los Angeles in one of the 2 teams until he's healthy. I think it'd be a wise move for him to make.
And I think the owner, with him not trading him this year, he didn't want to be, who was the Boston owner that traded Babe Ruth for his Broadway plays?
Can't remember, but
Red Sox fans know about it. Let us know in the comments below, and while you're down there, like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy this show as much as we enjoy making it. He clearly did not want to be remembered all time as trading the greatest player of all time away.
Well, and they were having trouble drawing as it was. You trade away Ohtani, and nobody's going to go to those games.
Not anymore. No, and then Mike Trout's out the door. But at the same time, though, if you can sign and trade Ohtani, find a way to do it, right? And you can trade Mike Trout, that's not a bad avenue to go as long as you have the capability to start to build a team from that. Everybody thought the Cowboys were crazy for trading Herschel Walker.
Yeah, but look,
and
what
it
did.
Built them 3 Super Bowls, right?
Yeah.
And if you have a GM that's capable of seeing that, like, you don't have a winner now, you have to start to rebuild.
That's the key. They've got to get a GM who knows what to do with those kind of picks.
Right.
I don't see it happening. I just think
I don't either, but it's like what we talked about with Aaron Jones and Green Bay, which we are going to get into in a little bit, so hang on to that. There's some more Mets news, or baseball news, that involves the Mets that I've been curious, because you've been down in Florida the last week, right? Sure. You had to run down there for a couple of things, and
it was really hot.
Yeah, well, dude, it was hot up here too. There's a reason I don't live in Florida.
Well, me too.
It is miserable for 3 months out of the year.
For all of the people in Florida watching this right now, our prayers are with you. I know there's a hurricane coming. Batten down the hatches. You've been through it before. And
hurricanes in Florida don't scare me after we went through Irma. I freaked out and we never should have left. Like, that was a dumb decision.
I'm telling you.
Because then the thing turned and chased us.
Yes. All the way to Savannah.
We were in Florida, in Tampa, for Irma. It was coming straight for us. It was a last-minute decision. The city was going to flood. Like, that's all we're hearing. It's my first hurricane.
I said we shouldn't move. We should just stay where we are. But
I make the decision. You're all on board. We leave, and then it turns and chases us to Savannah. It's like, really? Really?
I had people that have been... Tampa hasn't been hit by a hurricane for 100-plus years. Knock on wood. I hope it's not. But I had somebody tell me that there's a Native American protection over Tampa that will never be hit by another hurricane until it is.
Until it is.
But it was so weird.
The way that Gulf's heating up.
There were 2 hurricanes that I was down there for. Both of them took right turns away from Tampa. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. Anyway,
I want to talk to you about this because you were obviously alive when, Frenchie kicked in there. You were obviously alive when these 2 players played, and I really wasn't. I mean, for the tail end, but I wasn't watching baseball at that time. And these 2 players had a lot of legal trouble. And the Mets have decided to retire Dwight Gooden and Darryl Strawberry. They're going to retire their numbers.
Good.
Years afterwards. And obviously, you just said your opinion. I mean, what do you think about this?
Here's why I said good. These 2 players were the best in baseball at what they did. Strawberry was just an insane talent. Doc Gooden was the most dominant pitcher. He came up, and at 18 and 19 years old, he was making veterans who've been around for a long time look foolish. He was just overpowering. They had drug problems, and I'm talking cocaine and illegal drug problems. There are both stories of redemption.
Yeah, Gooden's career was ended because he tested positive, or at least his Mets career was ended because he tested positive for cocaine. And really was done after.
And I think he did some time in jail. I think Doc
did end up doing time in jail
too, actually. But Doc had a second half career. He came back and pitched for the Yankees.
He just recently went to jail again for testing positive while on parole.
These guys
he spent some serious time in jail. Yeah. Said, if this doesn't wake me up, nothing will. And then has been arrested 3 more times since then.
Look, it's what do we always talk about, and we've talked about on the show. You make choices once you get off that stuff is insidious and impossible to get off of at times.
You have to change your atmosphere.
Change everything about you.
You have to literally kick people out of your life that are enablers. You have to make hard decisions. It's why if you see addicts, what's their number one suggestion is you need to move.
Right.
Like, and I say that to people all the time. I've talked to some other people who have dealt with addiction problems, and I always say to them, you have to leave this where you are. You have to move.
And whether it's gambling or drugs or whatever, you have to get out of the situation.
Right. And if you find trouble wherever you move to, well, so be it. But you can't stay in the same place. It's turning back, right? It's the whole. There's plenty of stories about it, and one I held on to when I was dealing with some alcohol stuff was, I turned to the story of Lot when he left Sodom and Gomorrah, right? Yeah. It's you're leaving, and his wife turns back and turns into salt, right? It's because if you look back at a bad situation, you're doomed to go back to that bad situation. Well, if you have to keep moving forward and not look back. And clearly, these two, I don't know about Strawberry, but I read about Gooden, and he has not.
If you're a drug addict, you don't keep going to the same type of bars you went to before. You get out of the situation where those type of people are, and you really have to change your entire lifestyle.
Yeah. Well, and if you're drinking, right, and you have a drinking problem, going to a bar, like, you just have to say no.
Right.
Why are you going to do that? That's a stupid decision.
And alcohol's hard enough because it's at every convenience store, it's at every grocery store.
Right.
It's a tough road to hoe, but once you
cocaine, you have to look for that, and clearly these guys have been looking for it, which is why you have to move. You need to not know where these people are.
Yeah,
don't put yourself in temptation's way.
In Gooden's case, you don't go back to Tampa.
Right.
But Gooden set the record for the most strikeouts at an earliest age.
Yeah. Great pitcher.
Great pitcher.
Those two together in New York was a bad situation.
And you had an 86 Mets team that they were both on that very famously, got to the World Series and won. And they should be retired.
Because Babe Ruth had to have another laugh.
Yes. And it was a funny one. But,
But do you think going back, because here's the thing, because here's where I think of this, because you are king morality in a lot of situations when it comes to people being honored, right? Because through the steroid era, that was your and I's biggest argument and still is to this day. Sosa's number shouldn't be retired because of what he did walking out on the Cubs. Right. That's a big one. But like Mark McGwire was a great Cardinal. And I would argue his number should be retired for what he did for that organization.
If he would have handled that congressional meeting differently, he would have been retired.
Put away from that, but you're against that, right? You look at Barry Bonds. I don't like the dude either. I know you don't as a person, but in reality, the Giants at some point, if they haven't already, I don't think they have though, are going to retire Barry Bonds' number.
They shouldn't.
Rafael Palmeiro, 3,000 hits. He could have his number retired by.
His will never be retired.
No, it won't
Baltimore,
be because
by Texas.
He lied in Congress and then tested positive. Like, all he had to do was stop the juice.
Right.
And he would have been fine, but clearly he couldn't. And it was in older age for him, right? If we look at a lot of these guys, Barry Bonds and Rafael, not Sosa and McGwire, they were throughout. But if we look at Palmeiro wasn't until really a lot later in his career, because you can see he's aging. Probably wouldn't have gotten to 3,000 hits without using performance-enhancing drugs because he was really starting to fade, and then Canseco showed up and he had a resurgence in his career. But if you look at that, that's why I wanted to know your opinion on this. These guys are not, because you were big into role models, right? When I was a kid, I wrote this whole paper to you when I was a kid, how you were and still are very much a role model of mine, and I named all these other athletes as well in that paper. But your big thing is these guys, the Charles Barkley thing. I'm going off on a weird roundabout here. I'm sorry. Squirrel's kicking in. I'm going to get to my point here right now. Charles Barkley was the big conversation when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. Charles Barkley says, I am not a role model, right? And your big argument has always been, you don't have a choice, right? You shouldn't, and you told me you shouldn't look up to these people. You shouldn't. But kids can't help it, right?
Sure.
I loved Michael Jordan. I always did. Brett Favre was obviously a big role model to me. Reggie White was a huge role model. Gilbert Brown, the gravedigger, was one of my all-time favorite players.
William Henderson
made a huge impact on my life personally outside of football. Mm-hmm. But he was my favorite player. I played fullback as a kid. I was a big kid. And so that was my position. So you can't help but look up to these guys, right? And you have two guys here that a lot of kids in the 80s and even the 90s looked up to, and they're humans, right? They had real big demons. They were still great players. That shouldn't take it away from them. They could still be considered for the Hall of Fame for what they did on the field. Cocaine's obviously, it'll wake you up, right, for a little bit, but it's not a performance-enhancing drug by any means like steroids are. But from your point of view, you always preaching that to me as a kid. Why are you saying now that the Mets should retire their number? Because this is a sport for kids.
Sure. And I will tell you again, and life affects everybody. Certainly affected me.
Yeah.
And my attitude has changed over the years.
Sure.
These guys are stories of redemption. They're still fighting it. It's a lot different than Ryan Braun and the steroids and all that kind of, and the Bonds that are really trying to steal records from people that I looked up to. Gooden and Strawberry fought demons that we all face. They got into drugs because it was everywhere in the 80s.
Sure.
I've never done cocaine in my life.
It's everywhere now.
Yeah, it is.
There's more knowledge about it.
Way too much.
But if you look at pot now, right? Look where it is now.
Would I be judged? Do I want to be judged because of the time I was dependent on painkillers? No, I don't want to be remembered for that. And their stories of redemption. Gooden and Strawberry were very open about what they fought, and they came back. So I don't have a problem with the Mets recognizing them for the men they've become.
Here's where I'll make my argument to it, right? Because obviously, we heard in the beginning of the show, I've gone down this wrestling kick, right? And I look at people, one of the things I watched previously, right? But it was when Diamond Dallas Page, his documentary with Jake the Snake and Bret Hart, getting them off of drugs. The WWE refused to put them into the Hall of Fame until they were clean. They said, you going through this, we're not going to put you into the Hall while you guys are doing this. Jake the Snake has become one of my favorite redemption stories of all time. I can listen to that guy talk all day. He really got better. Bret Hart, I think, had some slip-ups, but he's still on that tour. But Jake the Snake, my God.
Diamond Dallas Page with his diamond yoga or whatever he does, which, by the way, is great. And I do some of that.
But he really took those people in and said, you're going to live this life, held them accountable. And Jake the Snake, I don't know his real name. I just know it was Jake the Snake. But
Jake Roberts.
Okay. He really took that and turned his life around with it. And that's when they got put into the Hall of Fame. That's what that whole thing was for, saying you want to be honored, you have to get clean. And then when they took the podium, it was the end of their redemption story. Like it never stops, right? When you're an addict, you're an addict. It never stops. But that was their pinnacle of, I did it. I can't speak for Strawberry because, again, I didn't read Strawberry, but I read about Doc Gooden. He was just in jail a few years ago. Like, he's not a redemption story by any stretch of the imagination.
A few years ago. How long's it been?
2019, he was arrested again for parole. He's still having legal troubles today. He was arrested in like 2005, 2006. Okay. Said at that point, if I go back now, nothing's going to stop. And he's been arrested 3 times since then. But again, has been arrested within the last 5 years for cocaine addiction. That's not a redemption story.
And if you want to wait until he's completely clean and use it as the carrot, look, you get clean and we're going to retire your number. I don't have a problem with that.
And that's the Mets helping them. The Mets, to me, this sucks because I feel like this is an owner that had built up a big season, right? He signed a lot of people and the season failed. And now you're in full rebuild mode. And so now it's like, well, we got to get people into the stands still. That's what this reeks of to me. And it bothers me because, again, let me know in the comments below about Strawberry. Again, I didn't read up on him. I got caught on Doc Gooden on this one. But it's not a redemption story.
If Doc is still, and the first I've heard about this is when I'm reading it now. I didn't know Doc was still going through those kind of issues. So if he is, then it should be that carrot. Okay, you turn your life around and then we come back and do it because we're not going to put an addict on the wall for kids to look at. Agree with that. Strawberry, I think, has been clean for a lot of years now. I don't have a problem, but they're tied at the hip with each other.
And if Strawberry has been, yes, it should, but that should be the story. This is why we're retiring Strawberry and not Gooden, because this is a redemption story, right? Because people who do go through the deepest pits most of us don't understand and then come out of that on top, that is a role model right there. That is because face it, our kids are going to see demons, right?
Sure.
I did, for sure. You had to be there for me with some demons. My kids, I know, are going to go through some stuff, and I'm trying to teach them the best I can now, but eventually the world gets a hold of them, right? And things happen. And so having those people to look up to, because that's not necessarily a kid role model, that's somebody who grew up watching them that's going through their own troubles, and now they get to see the redemption. Showing somebody retiring their number when they didn't, they're still having troubles with this stuff. It bothers me. It really does.
Doc, and I will agree with that. Honestly, I thought Doc has been clean for years. So if he's still fighting it, still going through legal troubles, no, you don't hold a guy up like that and honor him with a number retired, because then kids are going to look like, oh, well, wait a minute.
And it's not kids, right? It's adults.
It's everybody, every fan. They look, well, he can, obviously he's still doing it and he can still be rewarded for it. No, I don't agree with that. I think at that point, you look at Doc and go, we want to help you, and we're going to help you by not retiring your number until you're clean.
It was the greatest carrot that was ever thrown to, again, I go back to Jake the Snake, right?
Yeah.
Jake Roberts. For those of you that don't know, he's a Hall of Fame wrestler, was a huge wrestler back in the day, made Randy Savage get bit by a snake, like live. And I see why my mother didn't allow me to watch this stuff, by the way. I get it. But he had a lot of problems, and that was his carrot. That was what the whole thing was. We're going to get you into the Hall of Fame. Like, you should be in this Hall of Fame. You earned it, and you are costing yourself this. And good for Vince McMahon Jr. for saying, we're not putting an addict in. We're not going to have you come out high as a kite and put you into this Hall of Fame.
And that's great. And look, for those of you, and I've watched Jake's story, that man went through things no kid should ever have to go through.
His whole family is, we won't get into it.
We don't get into it, but if you want a true story of redemption and coming back from the pits, go and watch the Jake Roberts.
God bless his mother for doing the best she could.
Yeah.
And his grandmother for doing the best she could.
And God bless Diamond Dallas Page for reaching out and bringing him back and getting him clean.
Yeah.
What he did was beyond amazing.
Yeah. And hearing him talk about it now it's quite the story. And those old guys, I think, really stick together. I got chills just now thinking about it. But they really stick together, because the sad part is, and you're going to see this a lot, hopefully a lot less now, but you look at those wrestlers, how many of those guys are still alive?
Right.
Like, who do you have left? Hogan, Jake the Snake,
Diamond Dallas Page.
Diamond Dallas Page wasn't around back then, though.
Sure he was.
Ric Flair. Well, he was around in the 90s.
90s. Well, okay. Flair's the exception to every rule.
Flair should be dead. Yeah. He's still drinking, man. The fact that he's still alive, he's got a liver of a god.
He and Keith Richards are going to be around.
Yes, they are. It's definitely an exception to the rule there. But that's my thought on that. Like, that's why it bugs me, because to me, it's, you're only doing this to get butts in the seats. This isn't a good move. That you don't do something like that.
Not if they're still using, because as you said, if you're high as a kite, I'm not putting you out in front of our audience.
No,
you can't do it.
No, you can't. And maybe there's more to the story where this is all part of it, but to me,
I just hope he gets the help he needs. I really do.
He's gotten the help he needs at some point. I mean, through the whole time, it is on you. You've been given every opportunity.
You do, and you have to dig deep, and you have to make the choice to live one day. It's 1 second, and then it's 1 minute, and then it's 1 hour, and you have to live your life that way for the rest of your life, whether you like it or not.
Because all of a sudden, then it gets really easy, and then it gets real, real hard again all of a sudden.
Yeah.
It's a constant battle. And, I pray for these guys, right, to get clean. But you shouldn't retire their numbers if they're still having these types of trouble. You just shouldn't.
I don't disagree with that.
And I just feel like this is the end of a bad season, and this is a way for the Mets to get good press. And that's gross.
Let's hope Straw is clean, and let's hope Doc is on his way to being clean. But if he's still not, don't put him out there.
I hope so. But hey, you let us know what you think in the comments below. Tell me if you think I'm an idiot for this. I really want to hear your opinion. But let us know in the comments below, and while you're down there, don't forget to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy this show as much as we enjoy making it. Big news in Milwaukee.
I was going to say, I was listening to this story on the way back. Giannis announces he may leave Milwaukee.
He's not signing the extension this summer. Most likely. got 2 more years.
Yeah, and okay, here's the thing. Giannis has been everything Milwaukee could ask for and more.
Yeah.
I mean, he has been loyal as loyal can be.
Milwaukee hasn't seen a player like this since Kareem.
Yeah, and Kareem even handled it very well. He told the Bucks, I'm leaving, get what you can get for me.
Right.
But this is where I want to go.
And that will be Giannis not this year, but next year if an agreement can't be done.
Or the Bucks can step up, but I think Giannis has to take a role in this.
Go from the beginning here, because I think you and I are going to agree on this one. You want me to go?
Yeah,
okay.
Go ahead.
So basically, for those of you that haven't heard, he came out and said, I'm not going to be signing the extension unless the Bucks can prove that they're here to win championships, which is completely understandable.
He likes the feeling of being on top.
He wants to build a winner, which is great. He's in the prime of his career. NBA players are judged fairly or unfairly on how many championships they win. And so he wants to go and make sure he wins as many championships as he can. I want you to answer me this question. How have the Bucks not been committed to doing everything he wants?
They have, and I think this is where Giannis needs to look in the mirror and say, okay, if I really want to be committed to having a winner and letting the Bucks give me a winner, you've got to be okay with trading guys like Chris Middleton, who got injured, was the shadow of himself last year, and may never be.
Was he a shadow of himself, or did he show up for one good year?
I think he was still recovering from the injury last year. I really do. That was a bad injury he suffered.
Chris Middleton doesn't get that type of contract anywhere if it's not for Giannis saying he wants him around. He and Chris Middleton are very good friends.
Which, okay, that's fine. You're really good friends with somebody. If he's not going to win you a championship, you got to look inside and go, Chris, I love you. I'm always going to be your best friend, but Bucks have to do what they've got to do to get a winner here.
I think it's a dangerous game Giannis is playing, because I always look at what Kobe did in LA, right? Because they had some bad teams with Kobe Bryant after Shaq left. It got to the point where Kobe had a game where he didn't shoot once. He literally passed the ball to every other player to make baskets because he wanted to show the team, I don't have anybody here I can trust. There's nobody here that can make a shot. He later on said he regretted it. He shouldn't. That was a brilliant move, because you shouldn't have to play in every game and put up 50 points for your team to win. That was a brilliant thing to do. And what did the Lakers do? They tore it down and they rebuilt around him. Giannis, you continuing to sign Blake Lopez, you continuing to sign Drew Holiday, you continuing to sign Chris Middleton, and have a backup player like Pat Connaughton and Grayson Allen, who was just a failure of a signing. I think
that's even more than those four. The big four are fine. Middleton aside, I would have traded him. But it's that bench depth that Bucks have nothing.
They did, but they had, if you're going to sign those players who are really good role players, you're going, and you traded all your draft picks for these guys. You don't have any draft picks to build this depth. That's why I think what the Nuggets are doing right now is brilliant, because what they're doing is they're trading current draft picks for future draft picks.
Right.
They're like, we're going to sign now, but we need future draft picks to build up this team later on to surround with Jokic, because that's where we're going to be. And that's brilliant. The Bucks didn't do that.
No. And Giannis leaving, he's leaving all of the guys that he made the Bucks keep.
But his thought is like, I got you guys paid. And so he can walk away being okay with that. But like you saying, it was an interesting thing from Giannis. It really was.
You never hear from Giannis.
Because to say, well, they need to commit to build a championship. Yeah, they do. But okay, there's love on both sides here, right? And what is love by definition? Sacrifice.
Right.
So what are you willing to sacrifice to win?
And basketball is different. There's only 5 guys, obviously. So
well, there's 5 guys that are starters, but your bench has to be deep.
You got to have a good bench, but there's those core players, and if you change out one core player with a really good backup or a really good substitute for that person, you can get back to the promised land. One player makes a huge difference in basketball.
Look what LeBron just did in LA, right? They had a bunch of stars there, and he had them trade all of them for role players. And all of a sudden, they're a better team. You look at what the Lakers were at the beginning of the season versus the end, when they traded all their stars for role players, all of a sudden they're winning games.
It's going to be interesting to see. I agree with you that it was interesting coming from Giannis. I don't begrudge Giannis his opinion on that, but I think he's part of this conversation as well, and it's got to be a two-way street. They've got to work together.
Well, and the Bucks have to be willing to look at Giannis and say, okay, what are you willing to give up then?
Right.
Because if we're going to play this game, we need to get rid of these core players. Running it back is not the answer. Running it back wasn't the answer after they won in 2021.
No, it wasn't. And look what happened last year. They needed to make some changes, but they're running it back with the same core four players, and I'm not sure that's going to get them over the hump.
Mike Budenholzer took the blame for a bad roster. I mean, that's really what happened. And you have a new guy in there now. I get what you're trying to do, but you had injuries after injuries after injuries, and nobody on the bench that could step up. Nobody tried. Grayson Allen was a bad signing. I mean,
nobody could make a three on that team.
No.
Nobody. And so when you play teams like Miami who can light it up from three.
Right. Well, you saw how bad that Bucks team actually was when Giannis went down.
Right.
It's like, oh, we got nothing.
Yeah.
Because you should have been able. The Heat ended up going to the championship, right? They hit a hot streak. They ended up being a really good team. The Bucks should have beat the Heat. There's no excuse as the number one team not to do that. And it's going to be interesting. So my question to you is, okay, say he leaves. Where does he even go? Because are you going to play the superstar game? Are you going to become Kevin Durant?
I don't know where Giannis would go, honestly. I think he's going to go to he's about the community as much as he is about the team.
Yeah. And he likes Milwaukee.
He likes Milwaukee. And Milwaukee's been very good to him and his whole family. I could see him in LA. I think would be the most likely place.
Lakers?
Probably.
Just really, I mean, Aaron Rodgers followed the footsteps of Brett Favre to go to the Jets.
I can see him following Kareem.
Saying Giannis following Kareem.
I could see it happen.
To go to the Lakers.
Yeah.
I could see Miami. That would make a lot of sense.
Miami would, Sacramento. Not Dallas, I don't think.
No. That's too much. There's not enough ball for that.
And I don't think Boston.
That's where Dallas is going to get interesting with Kyrie signing now. We'll save that for a different show, but that's going to get an interesting situation.
Speaking
there.
Of interesting, I'm going to change gears on you.
Okay.
Because what's coming up this weekend and moving forward? It's football time.
I have in case you were wondering, why isn't Kyle wearing his Sports Talk with Dad t-shirt? Because it is football season.
Gambling.
And I got the vest on.
You lost at gambling.
Lost at gambling?
You lost your shirt gambling.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I haven't gambled in a long time. Speaking of things we need to walk away from, I got the vest on because I became an Ohio State fan with the vest. Like it is in my DNA.
Bucky.
No, Bucky. It is Ohio State season through and through. I got my colors showing. I'm excited for football.
We'll get to college in a minute, but did you see? I know you saw Trey Lance was traded to the Cowboys, but the interesting part to me was Jerry never talked to Dak or Mike McCarthy about that trade.
Dak, he doesn't need to talk to about that. Mike McCarthy, your head coach, needs to be clued in. Because Mike McCarthy found out before the game. And that's why they started. Dallas was interesting. This is where I like Mike McCarthy a lot. I do. Cooper Rush is obviously there. Dak wasn't playing that game. He let Dak call the plays, which was awesome, by the way. He did a really good job. But they had their third string. I can't remember his name. But they let him play the whole game. Like Mike McCarthy got the call. Obviously, you're cutting your third stringer because Trey Lance is there now. But they're like, fine, we're going to get you some tape. Like, you're not going to be here, but we're going to get you on tape. We're going to make you look good, and we'll get you on a team. Like that. You say what you want about Mike McCarthy. That's a good coach.
He is a good coach, and I think he's a straight shooter. I think honestly, I think Jerry Jones just excuse the analogy, but really put a gun to their heads, Stacks and Mike's, and they went, yeah, you don't win, you're gone.
Right. What's interesting to me is that people think Trey Lance is going to all of a sudden compete for a spot.
Not a chance.
I mean, this is a player that couldn't beat out Sam Darnold, who I think is a very good quarterback. I think he's the best backup in the league. I think he's a really good quarterback and could start in this league. He's just starting to figure out he's still young. But to think he's going to come in and all of a sudden be your backup quarterback or your starting quarterback, this guy couldn't beat out a 7th rounder and couldn't beat out Sam Darnold for a backup job. He's not going to come in here and all of a sudden compete for anything. This guy's a practice squad better. You're going to keep him on your roster just so he doesn't get claimed by somebody.
And Dak's reaction was not good, but I think he was blindsided by it.
He had a very professional answer.
He had a very
if you're Dak Prescott, how can you be blindsided? You just had back-to-back good years. The Cowboys fans are calling for your head at this point. Jerry Jones is not a patient man.
No.
I mean, he's pissed that he spent all that money on Ezekiel Elliott and you and is stuck with it now. Like, I mean, what did you think was going to happen? You still have one more year. You are the starting quarterback of this team.
I think him bringing in Trey Lance caught him way off guard. That if McCarthy would have been told about it, Dak would have known about it, and the answer would have been, "Look, I'm always great when we're bringing on this best talent as we can." Blah blah blah.
This was not a quick. This was a quick decision.
This was a Jerry Jones decision.
Right. This was everybody's offering a 5th. He said, "Hey, we'll give you a 4th."
Jerry Jones, don't forget, wanted to bring in
Johnny Manziel.
He's impulsive.
Speaking of a sad story,
yeah,
there's an interesting documentary as well. I've been very obsessed with documentaries lately. Yeah. I don't know why. I've been watching a lot of things about like the rainforest too. It's been a weird time. I'm back. Sorry.
Yeah, Jones is just impulsive, and he just made the trade just because he could.
He avoided the Johnny Manziel draft pick, but
because
couldn't avoid this one.
Yeah, he couldn't help himself. Do I think Trey is ever going to start a season for the Cowboys? No, I don't.
Can you say that?
Yes.
Trey Lance is 23 years old.
Trey Lance played at a very small school. He's been playing with house money since he was in college. He
really hasn't played since 2019.
Right.
2020 was canceled, then he was hurt for 2 years in the NFL.
He came from a small college without a lot of tape, and yet everybody fell in love with him.
Because he has that potential. He does have that potential. Mike McCarthy's a quarterback whisperer. I don't care what you say. He's worked really well with different quarterbacks. I don't think this is done yet. He has the talent. He reminds me, he doesn't exactly remind me, but look at Anthony Richardson right now, right? Anthony Richardson has all the talent in the world. Anthony Richardson, I've said it before, Anthony Richardson reminds me a lot of RG3. A lot of RG3. He's going to be really bad this year. Like Colts fans, I'm sorry. Anthony Richardson is going to be terrible this year.
He's as raw can get.
But he's going to end up being a really good quarterback in the next few years as long as they protect him. Trey Lance has the opportunity to be that quarterback. He really does. He's very young. He's younger than most of the quarterbacks that were drafted this year.
Sure. I don't see it. I just don't see it. I've watched.
I don't right now. I'm with you. I don't right now. But I'm saying to think that the Niners were able to move on from him because they found their quarterback, their starting quarterback. So they're like, we're not going to play this game anymore.
I think Darnold was better.
Yeah, he clearly beat him out in the preseason.
Right.
There's no question about it. But to say that his career's over, look at Sam Darnold. I mean, let's think about that. Look at Sam Darnold. He was seeing ghosts for the Jets. I mean, he was in a bad situation. He went to Carolina. It wasn't much better. He's in a really good place now, though, where he could really be a starter in this league still.
And he had a full offseason to work with Kyle Shanahan. Trey Lance is not going to get number one snaps the whole year unless Dak goes down.
He's not going to get he won't even then. Cooper Rush is your backup. Yeah, Cooper Rush won, 4 or 5 games for you last year?
Had they not expanded to allow 3 quarterbacks to be on the roster?
Well, you could always have 3 quarterbacks on a roster. It's just a 53-man roster. Yeah, but you could have 53 quarterbacks if you wanted.
There was some exception. But anyways.
It's the emergency quarterback.
Yeah, it's the emergency
You can have an emergency quarterback suited up.
So, but he's not going to get any snaps. McCarthy's not going to have a chance to work with him much.
Not this year.
So I don't see it. I mean, I don't think Cooper Rush is the answer in Dallas either. But
as your long-term starter, no, you're still hoping Dak turns it around this year. I think Jerry Jones is done with Dak Prescott.
I think so too. I think he's looking towards the draft.
Yeah. I mean, we're gonna see. I think you're right, though. This is a move of saying
now or never.
But people saying the fourth round is too much. Listen, this is a number 3 overall pick. What else are you gonna do with a fourth rounder? Like, you got a quarterback that could potentially be a star in this league, and that a few years ago everybody else thought was going to be a star in this league. I mean, that's a good use of a fourth round pick to me.
You might as well give it. I mean,
the Packers should have given a third round, considering the GM can't draft a third round pick anyway. But that's another subject. I don't think it's a bad trade for Dallas. It could end up being a good situation for everybody. I mean, Mike McCarthy won't end up being his coach if that's the situation.
No, it won't. I think this is McCarthy's last year, unless they get to the Super Bowl or the NFC Championship and almost win.
They won a playoff game last year.
But they didn't go.
It's a big stride from where they were a few years ago.
20 years, yeah.
I mean, think of where they've been. Like, you just won a playoff game. Dallas fans are the most impatient fans on the face of the earth.
They are falsely wearing America's team label. They've been wearing it falsely for decades.
Great marketing.
Everybody knows who America's team is. It is the Green Bay Packers.
Now, listen, I am speaking as a fan who hasn't had to be patient at all for his team.
Welcome, Kyle, to the 1970s and 80s Green Bay team.
Jordan Love.
Careful.
Jordan Love. Jordan Love. It's a very young team. It is the youngest team in the NFL, but we were the youngest team in the NFL the year we went to the Super Bowl.
But there were still veterans on the team.
Yes. There were still veterans on the team. We got one player that's on his second contract. I mean, that's not nothing. Technically 2.
Bakhtiari and Aaron Jones.
Okay, technically 3. Technically 4. We got a couple.
Oh.
We got a couple starters that are on their second contract, but Aaron Jones is definitely gone after this year. What I am curious about, Jonathan Taylor's still out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Recording this on Tuesday. Obviously, something's going to happen. It hasn't been announced yet. It sounds like it's between Miami and a mystery team, which is obviously the Bears.
Correct.
Like, it's
pretty obvious.
It's like Spam is mystery meat. No, it's pork. Like, we know what it is. But it's obviously between the Dolphins and the Bears that are still interested in him. My question is, it's a bull move, but if you're the Packers, why wouldn't you look at trading Aaron Jones for Jonathan Taylor?
That would take boldness and guts.
I don't want to see Aaron Jones go. He's a fan favorite, and he should be. He's great.
Yeah, but if I can get
you're not going to keep him after this contract.
If I can get, 4 or 5 years younger?
Yeah.
All day long. Jonathan Taylor, I would bring him in a minute. I'd give him Aaron Jones and a third round. Like you said, they don't know what to do with the third round pick anyway, so why bother?
Bring him back to Wisconsin. Didn't he play high school ball in Wisconsin too?
That I don't know. He was a Badger through and through.
Yeah, I don't remember if he was a local product or not. But, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't look at that if you're the Packers. Like, why? You're clearly giving up on this season anyway. You can say it's not a rebuild all you want. It's clearly a rebuild.
I would make the trade because you can get a young guy that's going to solidify the running back room, and it's going to be there for several years. If I'm Jonathan Taylor and I have a choice between going to Miami or Green Bay, I'm going to Miami or Chicago.
Right. I don't think Jonathan Taylor's in the position to make that choice. In fact, if I'm the Colts and I find out that Jonathan Taylor wants to go to Miami, I intentionally trade him to another team. Like, I mean, I think they're at that point now.
Well, Irsay has misplayed this. He never thought he would get any trade offers for Jonathan Taylor, and boom, within hours he had 2 of them.
More than that.
Yeah.
Apparently a lot of teams called. He's a great young player. He's obviously not actually hurt.
He can catch the ball. He's a great back. He helps out your quarterback. Why wouldn't you want him?
Look what the other running backs did. They all end up getting more money by just negotiating and saying, listen, let's just figure this out. I don't want to play on a franchise tag. Just give me some more money.
I don't get Irsay in this situation.
I don't either.
And it's not like him to be, let's face it, this petty.
It's not something we've seen from him before.
No, and he's chosen an interesting time to dig his heels in and draw this line. This is his line in the sand, and I don't get it personally. You need him there to help Richardson.
You do. This could have been like, hey, here's $2 million more. Like, let's just figure it out, and you can go to free agency next year.
Yeah.
I don't get that one either, but it's going to be an interesting football season. People seem to really be excited about your Badgers this year for some reason.
So let me address that, because I've heard...
I mean, I'm really excited about Ohio State. I don't really know who our quarterback is yet, but they're both 5-star recruits. I'm not.
Are you done?
For now.
Good. Let's talk about a team people care about, and that's the Badgers.
We want to talk about Ohio State more?
Stop it. Anyways, I've been listening to a ton of media in Madison, Wisconsin, and Milwaukee, and Green Bay, and whatever. They're all talking about, oh, this is going to be great. It's great that they're excited about this season. I am too. I haven't been this excited about a season probably since one of Barry's first years. That being said, they're playing with last year's roster.
For the most part.
For the most part. They brought in a new quarterback. We have no idea how they're going to be.
Yeah, 3 new quarterbacks.
Right.
But the guy from SMU is your starter.
He's your starter.
Brought in the air raid offense.
Well, that's a big, in the Big Ten, we've seen this tried before.
I'm excited to watch that fail so bad.
The Badgers, though,
are you going to get small now, too?
No, I don't think that's going to happen. Look, Luke Fickell is a smart guy. He knows he's got to have horses up front. He's going to
Big Ten guy.
He's going to make sure they're Clyde.
I'm really, really excited to see him back at Ohio State.
I can see 5 losses on their schedule, 4 or 5,
if not 6.
I can't see 6. I can see
Indiana's getting better.
No, I don't see him losing to Indiana. I can see him losing to Illinois, Ohio State, obviously, Minnesota, possibly at the last game of the year. I think Iowa's on that schedule. Who's the other one?
Sounds like we might be able to be at that game, by the way.
Squeeze me?
We'll talk to you about it off the air.
Okay. But and they were also talking about possibly changing the motion W. If they let Fickell do that, Fickell's not going anywhere.
Motion W is the W you see on their helmets.
Correct. It's been there since Barry got there.
Because apparently it looks like it's in motion. I didn't get it either.
I don't get it. But
it's Barry's design. He gets paid for that design.
We don't know that. But Barry designed it, and it's been there since 92, 93.
As long as I can remember.
I don't think they changed it, but maybe they will. I just temper your enthusiasm. If they come out and if they win 6 games and are bowl eligible, I think they've had a great year.
With this team, yeah.
With this team. And then they've already got 10 4-star recruits for next year. I don't know if they've got any 5-stars, but their recruiting is starting to change. He's focusing the 300-mile radius.
You don't know how many 4-star recruits Ohio State has?
The question I'm going to have, and a serious question, at the end of the year, it's almost certainly that Harbaugh is going to be leaving for the NFL.
Probably.
And possibly, I heard Ryan Day might go to the NFL. Now, we're 1 year into this contract. Ohio State's coming to Luke and knocking on the door. Would he leave after 1 year?
God, I hope so.
I hope not. No, in all seriousness,
I don't think he's leaving. No.
Not after 1 year.
Not after 1 year. No. I think he's comfortable there. Here's the thing. He wants a place to be able to raise his family in Madison.
Madison's a great city.
Great city to live in.
Yeah.
I mean, he's probably out in
Verona,
Middleton area, probably Verona over by Barry and all those other guys. I mean, it's a beautiful city. Madison really takes, at least had previously. I haven't been there in a while.
It's crazy.
But it's crazy.
But it's a good crazy.
But it's an interesting crazy. As long as you're not driving on the Beltline in Madison, which I had to do on the way back from Wyoming. I remember why I hate it so much.
What time were you going through?
Rush hour.
Ooh.
Right before. I missed most of it, but it was. There's no speed limit.
I just wanted to.
It bothers me.
No, I wanted to address that because it's just interesting. Everybody is talking about, well, they could go into the Ohio State game undefeated. No, they're not.
Probably not. I mean, if they do, it's really good coaching and a lot of luck. I mean, that's really what it would come down to. It's going to be close games if that's the situation, and I really don't see that happening. They won't be undefeated.
I just think you got to give these guys a year to really ingrain their system It's going to be a hybrid of the old rushing and the air raid.
Listen, I remember, and this is why I'd be scared to go to the game, because I remember when Ohio State came into Wisconsin. Yes, we were. I was very sad about it.
It was an ESPN game. It was nationally televised.
I know. It
was great.
I was there.
You got a bunch of heat.
But it was a big turnaround for that program.
It was.
It was a huge turnaround because all of a sudden they beat the number one team in the country.
No, they didn't beat them. They destroyed them.
No. Okay. It was not destroying them. They won by a touchdown. And if Terrell Pryor doesn't miss an open receiver by a mile and a half and just throw it to the Wisconsin player.
Beat them by 40 points.
Yeah, no. You remember we talked about earlier how stories grow?
Yeah,
they beat them by a touchdown. And again, the Buckeyes had the ball and had a wide open receiver that would have scored a touchdown because the Badgers were in a prevent defense. And Terrell Pryor just missed a wide open receiver and threw it right to the Wisconsin player for an interception. So, shush. But it was a big turnaround for them. And I tell you what, if Ohio State comes to town and they win that game, no matter what their record is, that's a big win for that program.
It is. And I think...
But the air raid offense working in the Big Ten is going to be tough. Because here's the thing. You're not going to have a lot of time when Ohio State and Michigan come to town.
By the way, the final score was 31-18 that game.
Okay, well, I remember when it was in a touchdown. That interception changed the game. It really did. Badgers went down and scored.
I just wanted to point that out. They destroyed them. Anyways, but it's going to be interesting to see what Wisconsin can do. I'm worried about their defense, and I'm worried about their offensive line. Actually, the line on both sides. Because that's the core of what you have to build to have a Big Ten team, and they haven't had that long in the weight room or to implement the program.
No, it's going to be a tough year.
Tressel's going to have...
Tressel?
Yeah, their defensive course.
Oh, that's right. He brought in Tressel's kid.
Yeah.
That's right. I forgot about that. Oh, he needs to wear sweater vests. He has to.
He's going to have a hard time getting a defense in place.
Yeah, but it'll be a lot easier if he's wearing a sweater vest.
I hope he builds off of what Leonard did.
I'll like that team if you have Luke Fickell and Tressel's kid wears a sweater vest. I'll start cheering for Wisconsin outside of Ohio State.
Okay, you heard that here.
Because then it's Ohio State light. It's like cheering for the Jets. You're just cheering for last year's Packers.
True.
If you're cheering for Wisconsin with Tressel being there and Fickell being there, especially if Tressel starts wearing sweater vests, I'm just cheering for the Ohio State team I cheered for when I was a kid.
Not going to happen.
Because both those guys were on the staff.
God, I hate
Ohio Are you State. Going to be upset that they build an Ohio State program in Wisconsin?
No. I'm going to hate that you're going to keep pointing out that it's really just Ohio State people building.
In the same way, if the Jets win the Super Bowl, I'll just point out, well, that was our team last year.
True.
Like when the Vikings were about to win the Super Bowl with Favre, I was okay with it because I'd be like, yeah, you needed a Packer quarterback to win. Congratulations.
I was actually okay with.
I was cheering for Favre.
I was too. I wanted to see him win, and I'm going to be cheering for Rodgers.
But yes, if Tressel comes out and wears a sweater vest to any of the games, I'll start. Except for Ohio State games, or if it affects Ohio State, they will become my second favorite team because again, I'm basically cheering for Ohio State.
If he's going to wear a sweater vest, it's going to be at the Ohio State game.
Oh, I would love it. That would make it really hard. Like it won't. I'll still cheer for Ohio State because obviously that's my team. But seeing a sweater vest on a Tressel on a sideline,
it'd be interesting.
That would be awesome. I miss that.
I bet.
I get why the thing broke up, but
we're going to have predictions for the NFL and for the Big Ten SEC next week. That'll be our prediction show.
We will. Expansion's still coming. I think they're done this year, but we're going to see more expansion. I tell you what, speaking of SEC, they're going to have to start to go after some of these teams.
That the core of the last core of teams to move will be the ACC, and I think that happens after this season.
Yeah, it already was on the rise. It just the vote got to be too far down. They were afraid they were going to lose the vote, and so they said, we'll just wait till next year.
I think the time frame was too short to get the final votes over.
It was. Putting a vote together for a day.
It's tough.
You weren't going to get it, and so I get that, but there is definitely more expansion coming. Last thing, I know it's been a long show, but again, it's been 2 weeks, so there's a lot to talk about here, but this is one thing I'm being nervous about, and golf is starting to point something out here. But before I get into that, let us know what you think in the comments below about the NFL season. While you're down there, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get to enjoy this show as much as we enjoy making it. So John Rahm, when you were right after you left, came out and was talking about gambling in golf. And he says you're hearing it a lot more now where people are saying, I bet you $10 he misses this. Or somebody got actually kicked off a course because he yelled at a golfer to shank a putt in the middle of his swing because he had $3 on him missing that putt.
Where the golfer had hundreds of thousands of dollars on that putt.
Right. And you're starting to see it more and more in golf, right? And you're definitely starting to see it more and more in other sports as gambling becomes more and more of a sport or a thing in sports. And you've already seen a bunch of NFL players get suspended for gambling on premise, some of them on NFL games. My question is, if you're going to invite gambling in, what else do you expect?
Right. Baseball is getting in bed with DraftKings and with betting.
So is the NFL.
And the NFL, of course. And they're talking about out of both sides of their mouths. You can't have it both ways. I think there absolutely has to be the distance between the gamblers and the teams because players are going to cross that line. And in golf, look, gambling in golf has been around since the invention of it.
Sure.
$5 Nassaus and whatever on the course, but it's on the course. For somebody to actually yell during the backswing of somebody's putt or their drive, just to try to win a bet, that person should be kicked out and never allowed on a course again.
But what happens when that starts to escalate? Right? Because somebody's got their mortgage on a play, on a golfer, on a team. Right?
They're going to have to just try to do the best they can.
And how can you keep players away from this? I'm sorry to interrupt, but just to make this point, how can you get away from this when they are sponsoring these teams and this sport?
Sure.
How can you tell NFL players, well, don't do this, but yet they have it everywhere across the stadium? And again, you can't keep these people away from it. They're sponsors, right? And they're massive sponsors. So they're going to get suites. They're going to get access to these players. They're going to get all of this because they are one of the major sponsors in the NFL and Major League Baseball. So you can't keep them away.
DraftKings is on the green doors out in Wrigley Fields, out in the outfield.
Right. So clearly that gets them into all the suites. Clearly that gets them into the locker room. So you can say what you want, but they have direct access with your permission to these players.
I have been the biggest opponent of Pete Rose getting into the Hall of Fame because he bet on baseball. With baseball getting involved in all these gamblers and inviting them into the game, it's like the owners are going, well, it's okay if we have them sponsor the game, but don't you dare bet on games. They're hypocrites.
100%. And I get what they're trying to say. Like, this is a sponsor. We still need to focus on the integrity of the game. But how can you focus on the integrity when you're leaving them in the locker room?
You're blurring that line.
Too much.
Way too much.
And it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse as this continues.
There's another Black Sox scandal looming in the future.
There is one. And here's the thing, too. It's how do fans now, right? This is a fans game where fans got to enjoy it. And now, how can you trust the integrity of the game? We know NFL players are betting on the game, right? I mean, how does this all of a sudden not become professional wrestling?
Well, and that's talk about bringing it full circle. We started with professional wrestling, and these sports have a very real danger of ending up being sports entertainment with the result is already known. If they don't address this gambling thing hardcore and really put a brick wall in between the two. Can they do it? I don't know, because you see DraftKings, and I'm picking on them. There's BetUS, who's sponsored us before and is a great sponsor.
Yeah.
You know, we appreciate all of them, but you got to keep it off the field. Somehow, some way, you've got to keep it off the field.
Suspensions are a good way of doing it, but again, you're suspending Calvin Ridley for a guy who wasn't near the facility, who just put a bet on his own team because he had insider information. Let's be honest.
Right.
But he's not on the team at that point. He's hurt. He's off the facility.
That was a stupid thing to do.
It's on their phones.
The NFL did the right thing.
I agree, but it's access everywhere. It's the tap of a button gambling now.
Well, and those guys are smarter now. They're not using their own phones to bet.
Right.
They're on their family's phones or friends' phones or whatever.
It's like saying the Logan Paul Floyd Mayweather fight, or the who's the MMA fighter?
Yeah.
Conor McGregor.
There you go.
I mean, all of a sudden Floyd Mayweather goes and puts a bet that he's going to knock out Conor McGregor in the 7th round. The match, I remember it started late,
right?
Because he was putting a bet on himself to knock him out in the 7th round, and all of a sudden he's getting punches in there. McGregor is, and then all of a sudden 6, especially the 7th, Floyd Mayweather puts him out easily.
Make no mistake, McGregor had money on getting knocked out in the 7th as well.
Right. And so we see that that's causing an issue, right? And so how do you not see this? Again, this is very much in danger where this is going to have to become professional wrestling. And then all of a sudden, gambling's not fair anymore, right? Because now DraftKings knows the outcome. And so they're swaying the bets their own way. And all of a sudden, other bettors are going to know the outcome to this. It's now becoming insider trading, right? So it's a slippery slope. This is why gambling has been illegal for so long.
Exactly. This is why gambling has always been kept far away. I mean, I remember when Alex Karras and Paul Hornung were banned for a year because they just were at an opening of a casino.
Right, as greeters.
Because you just couldn't, that wall couldn't be crossed. And then that wall is now like intertwined, and they're going to have to do something about it because there is another Black Sox scandal looming someplace.
It is. Reggie Bush is now suing the NCAA, and I think it's taken way too long for him to do this because of slander of his name back in the day. And they won't give him back his Heisman. He volunteered it back, quote unquote, but make no mistake, he was made to give that back. They said, give it to us or we're going to take it from you.
So much for my last word.
I'll hold off. I'll let you have that last word.
No, that's fine. We're talking about it now. But Reggie Bush should have his Heisman back.
Because now all of a sudden the rules have changed, and now these players are making more than some of the NFL players.
Right. I mean, this NIL deal was badly conceived. It was reactionary by the NCAA. Do I have a problem with the players getting something for what they're doing? Absolutely not.
But the schools are brokering this. It's becoming a part of recruiting. It's this whole entire thing. You all of a sudden, you're a kid in Colorado. Well, they're bringing in transfers. They're not going to have you on their team.
You're going to have haves and have-nots.
Right. And so all of a sudden recruiting's different now. And if you're a young kid that's a walk-on, good luck getting on a big program. It's not going to happen because they don't have a bench of people now. They're just going to go to the transfer portal and pick who they want. Like, this is just a different game at this point. And it's going to start to hurt the sport because the integrity of the sport is going to be questioned. And it already is becoming questioned at this point.
We've had a good show.
We have had a good show. I'm excited that you are back. I really am.
Glad to be back.
But you brought back some hot weather, so.
Even that, it was beautiful when I got
It's going to be 90 tomorrow.
Get over it.
I won't, because I don't like hot weather. I came back here for the cold. I would much rather deal with the winter than a hot summer.
Well, you're crazy for that.
Never crazy. Always on point. But we have had a great show, but as every conversation, you cannot have a conversation with your father without your dad getting the last word, so it is all you.
So I had to go down to Florida and take care of my daughter who had her car died, and had to go down there and help her out, and then come back. Had a very interesting detour. Actually saw the memorial at Stone Mountain, Georgia. Interesting carving. It was done, actually, I didn't realize it was completed in 1972. Agree or disagree with the subject matter, that's up to you. But take the time when you're out and doing road trips to go and see America and see some of the things that are off, just a few miles off the main drag. Don't just stay on the highway and focus on the next McDonald's you're going to get to. Go and experience America. It's a beautiful country, and there's a lot to explore. I did it. It was the best thing I did. If you got to make a road trip, make sure you're going out and you're not just traveling the main roads. Get off the roads and see the rest of the country. Your kids will enjoy it as well.
Probably my favorite last word you've ever had. Because we just did that too, right?
Hmm?
Look at the stops along the way. We went to the Spam Museum.
Which
Who would ever go to the Spam Museum?
No one.
But it was a highlight of the trip for the kids. So find stops to stop at. Don't stretch your legs at rest stops for McDonald's, like you said. Find places that you will never see otherwise and make that your place to stop. Good word.
Thank you.
It was awesome.
Spur of the
Saw
moment.
the pictures. That was a cool mountainside.
It was. It was
very neat.
How they make those types of things, the artistic ability of the people that made that, it was just amazing. I didn't realize it only got completed in 1972.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
I thought it was done by Gutzon Borglum. He started it, but he never completed it.
He didn't complete Rushmore either.
No, his son did.
Yeah.
Well, he had a reason for not completing it.
Well, yeah,
he died.
I mean, that'll do it.
Yeah, that'll do it. I'll give him.
Man, for a guy to figure out how to carve into mountains and then to be the person that he's done them all now. What a unique ability.
And one of his apprentices is doing Crazy Horse, and now his whole family is doing it. And Crazy Horse has the hand done now.
Yeah.
It's just unbelievable.
It'll get done at some point. I don't know when, but it'll get done at some point. Thank you so much, as always, for watching. We really appreciate you being here. We'll see you next time.
Bye, everybody.